What's up, everybody? Hopefully I'll get some folks that join me. What I want to do is kind of have a conversation with folks. I know sometimes people get on YouTube and then they just be trying to tell everybody everything, but I don't want to tell everybody. Peace, Queen. What's going on? I'm not trying to tell everybody everything. So good afternoon. Good afternoon. What's up, y'all? Like I said, I'm calling this a community dialogue. So as I just kind of welcome everybody on in, I don't want to try and tell everybody everything because I don't have all the answers, right? But I do want to address something that I think is important, or a conversation that I think is important for us to have. Yes, I'm ready to have a conversation, right? So normally I'm not all up in the comments. I kind of check them here and there, but I'm about to be all up in the comments. And hopefully, if you guys are able to participate in the community into the conversation, then we can talk about some things and look at what type of solutions that we can come up with together. So let me tell you a little bit about what motivated this conversation and just some of my frustrations and things of that sort, right? So I'm talking about Black misleadership. And so first of all, I did not make up that term. I actually have a friend, H. Soul Ashamu, that's who I heard it from. I don't know where he got it from. But I wanted to hold on, I'm gonna come back to that comment in a second. I'm gonna come back to that comment in one moment. So let me just kind of lay out like a little bit of lay of the land of why am I even talking about this? Where did this conversation come from? So anyway, I was just pointing out that I did not say Black misleadership. Like, that didn't come from me. A friend of mine, he used that term, and it's always stuck with me because I think it's important for us to have that conversation around misleadership. And so first of all, my first thing is who we consider leaders, right? And that is a controversy in and of itself in the Black community as who is actually considered a leader. So you have a lot of talking heads. Just this platform in and of itself, like YouTube has made this platform. I see you, Michi. This platform has, given a lot of voice to people and allowed them to spread a message and allow them to talk about things that are important to them or talk about nothing at all, right? And then you look at certain things like media and things of that sort. I remember years and years and years ago, Charles Barkley was like, oh, I'm not a role model, right? And so leader, role model, like a lot of these words are interchangeable. But ultimately, we're looking at people who have a platform and have a voice are oftentimes looked as being leaders. And then we could break it down to the local level. I'm sure you're a leader in your home to your kids. You might be a leader in a church or a leader in a school or a leader inside of your local community. And maybe you don't have a whole lot of followers, right? But you're doing things and you are presenting and creating and leading the way in certain things, right? Or you're doing things that are notable, or you're even just doing things right and being, someone that people can look up to and use as an example, right? So I think we don't speak enough or talk enough about what a leader actually is, but that term still gets thrown around because if you are or have built or have a platform, people are oftentimes going to look at you as being a leader, especially because you have the ability to use that platform to spread certain types of messages, right? So first of all, let's just talk about that, right? And then there are other types of leaders who enact in things or places or positions of power, meaning you've climbed a ladder somewhere. So maybe you have the ability to hire. Maybe you have the ability to get funds to certain organizations, right? Maybe you have the ability to create policy or legislation, right? So there's a lot of different types of leadership, even when you might not have a big platform, right? You could be a politician and hardly anybody knows you. Maybe you're only known in your district, but you have the ability to vote or put forth legislation that's important. So there's a lot of different ways that we have to, or that we can look at what it means to be a leader inside of our communities. So what happens when people take those positions and take that power and they use it for themselves, or they use it to hurt the very people who they should be standing for? And a lot of that is kind of where I wanted to take that conversation and look at certain things, because one, I want to move from an either or type of a conversation, right? I don't think that it is either you are out here for yourself or you're out here for the people. I think that it can be a situation of both, but that's only if your intentions are genuine. So again, like where I started kind of coming into this conversation and just really getting frustrated. So I've been doing the Black Business Initiative now for roughly 5 years, right? And just as I've really kind of pushed myself more into a public space, of course, you start getting more criticism and more feedback and things like that. So I've had people who are like, "Oh, you're just what they call me, an armchair activist," right? And I was like, not me, not over here. But I think it's important because obviously, if you don't know what somebody has been doing on the ground, then that's easy to think that I'm just a person who decided to get on YouTube one day and just start talking, right? So, okay, cool. So then, I had to like refrain from like trying to defend my record to people who haven't even done any research or who don't know me, right? But then what I started to see here, the more that I got out, not only on a local level, but also on a national level, the more that I started getting out and looking at leaders and having an opportunity to speak to people in leadership positions or with large platforms on the back end, and to see not what they're doing in the public eye, but to see what they're doing in the private, in the privacy of really in this privacy that's veiled by politics, right? Then I started to just really get disheartened. And I'm like, oh my God, like these are some of the things that you read about. These are some of the things that you see have happened in the past. But now when I'm here in the forefront of being able to see it in my own life and in reality, and I'm just disheartened. And I'm like, yo, like, let's talk about this because, so let me give you a couple of examples. I went to a meeting with the mayor, right? So the mayor of Denver. So if you're not from Denver, you don't know what's going on here in Denver. Denver has already been gentrified. It's done. There's no going back. So this was not like a one-on-one meeting. This was a conversation, as they called it, conversations and cocktails or something like conversation cupcakes. I think that's what it was. Conversations and cupcakes with the mayor. It was supposed to be an intimate conversation with the mayor. So the meeting was scheduled for 2 hours. The mayor showed up for roughly 30 minutes. And it wasn't a conversation. It was more like I have some questions. And it was like a quick shot type of conversation, right? It was like, let me ask you this question and raise your hand. You. Okay, next question. You. Like that was kind of the tone of the conversation, right? So I thought, okay, that's interesting, but okay, cool. So let me roll with this. One of the questions that the mayor asked, he said, we have, and him when he says we, I'm going to assume that he meant his economic development office, the mayor's office, the city of Denver, the city and county of Denver, and all the billions of dollars that are coming through the city of Denver, right? I'm going to assume that we was that whole conglomerate of money and resources and whatever, right? So he says, we have all these resources and we've tried to reach out to the community, and there is a gap in between like execution and, the resources that we have and it actually being executed down on the ground level in the community. So I raise my hand and I'm like, okay, well, so here's the deal. Here's what happens. You see inside of these networks, right? You see people recycle the same faces over and over and over again. I know this cannot be a Denver phenomenon. I know this has to happen everywhere where you recycle the same people, the same names over and over and over again. You see them moving. Sometimes they make upward moves, but a lot of times they're just making lateral moves. They were the head of the NAACP. Now they're the head of the Urban League. Now they're, in charge of this foundation. Now they're working on that foundation, right? And it's like all these lateral moves, but really what they're doing is they're acting as gatekeepers because they're not getting the resources down to the actual people on the ground doing the work. And they're not doing the actual work. Matter of fact, most of the people on the ground don't trust them, right? So here's what I see. I see people having these conversations where you don't trust these people, but you need something from them. You need the resources that they're guarding the gate to. You need the access to the money. You need the introduction to, you know, whoever it is that, or whatever resource it is that they're guarding. And so you play this political game. You play this game where you take the selfies and you take the photo opportunities and you're smiling and you're like, thanks to so-and-so. And I'm not going to name no names because that's part of what I want to talk about is the call out culture. So I'm not going to name any names. If you're here in Denver, you're going to already know some names. If you're in other areas, if you're in other cities, I know there are names coming to your mind around who these people are. They're recycled over and over and over again. They roll in a clique. They all just kind of do their thing. They network really tight. And they have access to the white community and they have kind of access to the Black community because they're guarding the gate and stopping anybody that's on the ground doing the work from actually getting to where the money is, right? And let's be clear, there is money inside of our communities, but there is a whole hell of a lot of money inside the white community and it's owed to us. And so when we go out to try and get that money back inside of our communities and pull that money in and create resources, we're often blocked by our own people. Right? Am I right? Okay, so wait, let me stop and start going back because I said I was going to look through the comments, right? So I don't want this to be my soapbox. I want to have a conversation. So these things are happening and they're happening inside of our community. And then what happens is, and this is what I explained to the mayor. I said, here's what happens. I said, you're funding the gatekeepers. You're not funding the people on the ground doing the work, right? So here's what I was told. Well, you have to expand your network. Okay, so first of all, I'm not even going to take that comment personally because my network is expanding, right? So oftentimes where I've run into issues with my network is that I'm too Black. They don't want to have them conversations. I'm not politically correct. I roll up in stuff that says Black as fuck and I roll up into the meeting and that's what my t-shirt says. And I'm going to sit down and have the meeting with you. And then you're going to look at me like I'm not professional, bitch. I got degrees. I have suits. I have all of that. I pick and choose how I live my life and I don't roll like that. Right. So what happens is oftentimes I'm just too Black for the conversation, right? Which is cool. I'm not mad because my work is on the ground with the community. But what I said was, because I pushed back. I didn't just be like, oh, okay. I pushed back. I said, listen, well, you asked the question. You want to know where is the disconnect between the resources that the city has that they claim is for the Black community or for communities of color or for whatever, right? I don't use that. For the Black community. You say you got resources for Black folks and you want to know where's the gap in the bridge between actually reaching Black folks and getting these resources into the community. I just told you that the gap is that you are not reaching the actual people on the ground doing the work. You're reaching the gatekeepers. And then you tell me the people on the ground need to do a better job networking. So the people without the resources, the people who are actually busy in their day-to-day lives doing the work, they're the ones who are supposed to reach out. The city who has a plethora of resources, who have billions of dollars coming through, it's not their responsibility to then go in and reach out to the community, right? And again, I'm not specifically trying to call out the mayor because this is a national epidemic inside the Black community. This is not just one thing, but I'm pointing out one example of what prompted me to have this conversation. And I specifically said that to him because I know for a fact that he knows of a specific situation that has happened inside of our community dealing with me and another misleader. So I'm not even about to mention this bitch name because she don't even get the ability to be on my platform, but just understand that there is a Black woman inside of the community claiming to be for Black women entrepreneurs who has stolen and tried to co-opt things that I was working on for 4 years and then tried to put me down as being a Black woman entrepreneur and a Black single mother inside of the community, right? And she did it carefully because she was very careful. And actually she told me this. She said, well, I want to be careful that nobody sees that we have an issue on the back end because, that's a bad look for the community, right? So I'm gonna come back around to that because that's an issue with people being very much aware of what they're doing and trying to play the political game. So she don't want no political struggles with me because I have a good name on the ground. So she wasn't trying to have no fallout with me on the ground, right? But she was aware that she was doing some bullshit. And so she didn't want to address that. So she wanted to keep things cool. so that she can continue to move forward, right? And so I was complicit in that, because instead of me calling her out, I backed up and I didn't say nothing, not for the same reasons, but because I just have bigger and better things to focus on, right? But again, so now I'm acknowledging my own complicity in the fact that we have leaders doing this bullshit. So what ended up happening was the city goes and funds this organization who co-opted what I was doing and been doing for 4 and 5 years. And the city funded that organization, but the city has denied funding to my organization for at least the last 3 years. Haven't cut one check, but they cut a check after she co-opted my stuff. Why? Because she knows the mayor, right? So she has the right network. So I just thought that was interesting, right? So I see this all the time. And when we talk about the accountability piece, right? Okay, so wait, actually, let me back up, because I said I was about to go to the comments and then I moved on to the accountability piece. So Nakia says, my heart is a little heavy. I just wish beefs could be settled in private. It does more damage on the open. Okay, so we're gonna get you that Chicago date. We working on that. So let me address that, right? So that is one area, especially because, again, with addressing who are considered leaders in our community, right? When these leaders go in and they have these public beefs and they are dragging each other's name through the mud, it is to me, it is such a draining. It's a drain on the resources, and we get caught up inside of these like private beefs of who said what to who and against who and whatever, when those platforms could be used for things that are actually moving our community forward, right? And we see this because if you go to any of these beefs and you look inside the comments, you see people being like, come on, y'all, we can't do better than this. And it's a whole lot of them, right? So we could talk about Tariq Nasheed and Dr. Umar Johnson, both of who have some strong messaging, both who have a lot of knowledge. Why do they need to be going at each other? That's an egotistical thing, right? And I don't know either one of them. I've had the opportunity to meet Dr. Umar. I've never met Tariq Nasheed in person, but I follow works of both of them. And a lot of times I just kind of stay out of whatever it is. And what I try to do is I try not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? But it is a disheartening thing for people to have major following, good messaging, and they just can't keep out of the messy stuff. So let me see. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So I'm seeing that it's a widespread problem. Fighting Temptation said, call them out. So here's the thing, right? So I'm saying the mayor of Denver because I don't think that's not even a big call out, right? I mean, I don't feel like that's a big call out, especially because it's so much like if you're in Denver, it's not a big call out to say anything about the mayor. And for me personally, like, first of all, I'm not in Denver city. So I'm not in the city of Denver. So I don't vote for the Denver mayor. Right. But I have approached the economic office and I have seen where you don't get a lot of I feel like there's a lot of talking. It's a lot of fluff, right? I don't see the action. But in my opinion, he literally just laid out why there's not a lot of action, because in his mind, you have to have the right networks, right? So we had that exchange. The mayor knows me by name. I'm not really with the call out, because just like what you said, why can't beefs be handled in private? I feel a lot of the same way. So my question is, like, one of the questions that I have is, how do we begin to address these leaders inside of the community who's doing the bullshit, right? How do we begin to address them, or how do we even remove them from their platform? Because my issue, so here's my thing. I don't feel like the call out culture works, right? And I'm willing to, like, I'm looking for the answers, right? So y'all put in some comments if y'all have something as to how we do this. I don't feel like the call out culture is, by and large, I don't feel like it's helpful. That's my personal opinion. If you have a different view on that, like, please do back it up, right? Like, tell me, put it out here. Because to me, what happens is, this is how I see it. If you go and you call me out, I get defensive, like, and it's a natural human reaction. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with me trying to defend my position or my stance, but I also feel like as soon as I get defensive, because you called me out, right? Then my ears are shut. I can't even hear anything you're saying. So, whereas in my opinion, a leader can take in information, can assess the information, can then determine whether or not they feel like there's validity in the information, and then come back and make a stance based off of having all the information or receiving new information or receiving a new perspective or whatever. Then I feel like what happens is that when I've closed my ears, like, I'm not even open to hearing your point of view or seeing your point of view at that point, right? So I feel like the call out culture doesn't help because it automatically puts people on the defense, and it doesn't create an environment for a conversation. It doesn't create an environment for dialogue where we have the opportunity to maybe assess a different route or whatever, right? So she says they're the gatekeepers, the buffer between us and the dominant community. They get money to keep us down. Our own community is our community is waking up. Okay. And then the call out culture is not right. It starts a whole nother problem. It turns child. Exactly. So there's two different things being. So first of all, I agree. I 100% agree. It turns childish, right? So now let's talk about that. They get money to keep us down. So if you follow Dr. Claude Anderson in particular, I know he talks about this, and there are other people who talk about this, but I know Dr. Claude Anderson speaks on this frequently, is meritorious manumissions, right? So here's the thing. So when meritorious manumissions was created, and so then now if you don't know meritorious manumissions, cool, right? But let me just throw it out there. So if you know meritorious manumissions, so meritorious manumissions was created in the 1700s, and this was basically a way for slaves to gain their freedom, right? So slaves could gain their freedom by inventing something for a white person. So oftentimes when we see all these inventions, just know that Black people could invent something that bettered the white life, and it could help them gain their freedom. You could also save the life of a white person, and that could help you gain your freedom, right? So this is, part of why we are so gung-ho to protect Massa and protect all of Massa's buildings and belongings and his business interests and all of that, right? My bad. Okay, so the third thing for meritorious manumissions was you could snitch on a slave. So there were slave revolts that were planned, meaning we got together as a community, right? I'm gonna use that word lightly, but we got together as a people, and we began to make plans, and we were going to turn over things. We were going to do stuff. If I then took those plans and I went and snitched on my people to Massa, right, I could gain my freedom. So obviously if you're not in, chains today, right, and we're not bound to a plantation today, and that might be subjective, but if we're not bound to a plantation today, what is the benefit that we get? Like, I feel like meritorious manumissions has done two things. One, it has trained the way we think about, one, how we protect white folks, and two, how we turn on each other, right? So it allows to have that situation where you come in and you look like a friend, but really you're just trying to gain some information so you can run back, right? And then the second part, so it's breeded mistrust within our community, right? And then the second part is that you were given some sort of reward for that type of behavior. So if you're not bound to shackles and chains right now, what is the reward for basically doing the bullshit to our own community? What's the reward for that today, right? So they get money. So money is one reward. Elevators were stolen from a Black man. Otis elevators was stolen from a Black man that talked too loud. What does that mean? Are you talking about like the brand of elevators? And then Michi said, if I can't call him out, I can slap them in a private. Girl, I ain't messing with you today. Some of them are quietly destroying their own. Yes, that part is true, right? So I ain't messing with you today. on that one, Michelle. But I feel you. So if we can't call them out in public, what do we need to do, right? What do we need to do in private? So let's come back to that question real quick. What is it that we gain? So is it just money? Is money the only thing we gain? Like, take somebody like Stephen A. Smith, right? Oh my God, this man be on national television and is constantly calling Black people out. He does not call out white people. Okay, so wait, what happened with him a couple of years ago when he had tried to call out about domestic violence and then he got suspended? Y'all seen how quickly that man came back and he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I said that, right? But he constantly is like, I don't care if the Black community is mad at me, right? Like, he is the epitome of someone who is, and I'm not calling Stephen A. Smith a leader. I'm not, because he presents no solutions. He's not, but he has a platform, right? And he gets a lot of views and a lot of people who hear his message, and his message is toxic to the Black community. So fuck what the white community does to Stephen A. Smith. What can the Black community do to Stephen A. Smith? What can we do to remove that type of leverage and power? Cooning for capital. I like that hashtag. I'm gonna use that hashtag. So y'all know I don't be taking nothing and then acting like it's mine. I'm gonna use that hashtag and I'm gonna give props where props is due. We need someone on the inside, like a secretary, receptionist, someone to attend all the meetings. Shit, all them people that be attending the meetings, they be snitching for, look, they come and attend our meetings and go back and snitch. We need somebody in their meetings who can come back and bring back the information. Honestly, I believe I believe the more you let an enemy know that you know, the more you give them the opportunity to re-strategize and find another person to send in. Okay, cool. So keep talking to me about that, right? Wait, hold on. You wrote another one. In public, look them right in their face, get what you need from them, even if you have to give to get, and use it for what you want to use it for with people you trust. Okay. Maybe, but let's go back to the first comment that you said. If your enemy knows what you got going on, then they find somebody else to strategize. So I agree with that. That was one. So y'all know I used to be in the military. If you don't know, I used to be in the military. One of my biggest issues with the military was how much that the media wanted to say what was happening when us on the ground, so being on the ground in a war zone where we were getting bombed daily, right? And so I used to be at LSA Anaconda over in Iraq. We were getting bombed daily. It felt like the media was this betrayal, because we were like, why do y'all try and put out so much of our intel? Y'all try to put out our movements. Y'all try to put out where we're based. Y'all want all this information. And our enemies have access to the same platforms and public spaces that we do, right? When I try and have these conversations, like, I'm already aware that our enemies have information like this. If I'm having a real conversation, I have zero electronics, because Google is always listening, right? Google, Siri, they all listening. But what happens, like, even with the Black agenda, there was just somebody who tried to post like, oh, y'all are scheming because y'all are charging for the Black agenda. I'm not even about to give credibility to that, because the fact that we're flying in like 13 people to 7 different cities across the country, that in and of itself costs money. It costs money to get into the Black agenda, right? But he was like, well, I can give information to my people for free. Okay, well, kind of. I mean, I guess this is me giving information for free, although I had to pay for my internet and I had to pay for the laptop that I'm using. And if I wanted to have my cell phone, like, this is $1,000 cell phone, right? So, like, it's not always free. But what happens when we want to come and get face to face with the community, and we want to come in and have that intimate and personal conversation on the ground with our community, instead of just being like this, right? Like, y'all can just kind of know me because we're interacting, but it's like, how much is like really, how well do you really get to know me? How well do you really get to see the work that I'm doing if you're not here? The reason why I have a solid reputation, I'm gonna pat myself on the back for having a solid reputation in Denver, because I've worked hard to have a solid reputation. It's hard when people do bullshit to you and you stick to what you said, right? I don't do the call out culture. That's why I ain't mention nobody's name when I'm talking about people here locally, because that's not me. That's not my brand. But it's not like I don't want to. I'm human. I don't like that you've taken the hard work that I've done and you tried to, fuck me over with that, right? So I'm angry, but I also want to live in the integrity of doing what it is that I say I want to do. So if you're here on the ground with me, then you know that you can catch me every third Saturday at Black Dollar Saturday, live and in the flesh. You know that I answer my phone. You know that I have, that you can schedule meetings with me. You know that I do coaching. You can catch my workshops. I do free shit. I do pay shit and try to keep it as affordable as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're here on the ground with me, then you know those things, right? But if you're just seeing me online, how do you know how real I am? So then when we want to come out and go face to face with the community, then we get chastised for that, right? Because it's wrong to charge you so that I can actually get to your city and have that face-to-face conversation. So I find it interesting, like, for us to have those conversations with one-on-one, or being inside of the room with people, and finding ways to not let the enemy know what we're doing. How do we do that if we can only communicate online and they monitor everything we do online? I was blocked off Facebook for 30 days. Like, they monitor everything you do online, right? So how do we get into a space where we can have those face-to-face conversations and maybe reduce the possibility of us being monitored? And then how do we kick out folks who we know shouldn't be in the room? How do we begin to kick out folks who we know shouldn't be in the room? So let me see. My bad, because I didn't let comments go by. Dr. Do Nothing, I haven't blocked you. I don't know, boo. I don't know what's up. I didn't block you. I ain't blocking nobody. So I don't know. Put your comment back in there if it was deleted. Communication security. So that's something that we don't have within the Black community, is communication security, right? So they put in here, from the military perspective, ComSec, that's communication security. So how do we secure our communication? How do we secure our communication? I think that's a really great conversation to have, because we know who the gatekeepers are. Like, we can identify a lot of them. They're not even in hiding 9 times out of 10, right? So once we've identified them, what is it that we need to do? And that's why I'm saying it's a community dialogue, because I don't have all the answers. Let me just start with that. I get irritated and I get upset and I put long rants on Facebook, and then I go try and go on about my day. But I don't feel like my long rants are the answer either, right? But I did put this parable out there. I said, what does the parable say? The axe, the tree, when the axe came into the forest, the tree said, at least he's one of us, right? And so oftentimes when we're looking at the white community for all the things they do, we have to look inward. And a part of that, I don't know if this is going to help with all of that sun in my face. Maybe not. I feel like that didn't help at all. My bad, y'all. I'm facing a window and these blinds. That's what's going on here. Is that going to maybe be better? Maybe. Okay. So we look at the white community as being a good part of the problem. But here's the thing. I feel like the white community really doesn't have to actively. This is why so many of the white folks don't even realize why Black people are mad, right? Because they going on about their day. They're going on about their life, and they're like, I haven't done anything to you, right? And a lot of them haven't done anything, because they are the recipient of generations of the bullshit, right? So like, take meritorious manumissions. That's not something that's new. It was done in the 1700s. It's 2000s. So 300 years ago, they began the conditioning, the mental conditioning of Black people to mistrust Black people and to do other Black people harm in the name of upholding white supremacy. White folks today don't have to do shit. This is why it's important for us to figure it out on our own, and why we have to go, and continue to understand the systems and then break down the systems, right? Break down the system. Look, Michi over here being my moderator, and she ain't even my moderator. Thank you, girl. I love you. I don't know how to do whatever people be. Oh, there we go. Bam. Look, now you my moderator, Michi. But it's what I feel like is that we spend a lot of time blaming white people. And don't get me wrong, this doesn't go all the way back 300 years, right? We know as early as the 50s, 60s, 70s, for sure, we know like there is documentation on COINTELPRO, and there's documentation on them, making us these, national threats and this, that, and the other, right? Then the documentation gets a little bit harder to find. So now what you can find is you can find studies that show the disparities, right? But these things like the mental conditioning has been happening a long time. The economic issues are more present day because the economic issues weren't even an issue until the 1800s after slavery, right? So around the time that we started building our own communities, Reconstruction, right? Around that time is when they started putting economic policies in place. Prior to that, the mental and physical conditioning has been happening for centuries. 5 of them, to be exact. So the white folks don't even got to do shit to us today because we already think a certain way. That's why it's so important for us to figure out how we break that cycle of mental conditioning. And so when we talk about what it is that they're doing, like today, shit, they ain't doing nothing. They don't have to. White folks is confused by what Black people are talking about because economically they may understand a little bit of that, but when we start talking about the mental conditioning, they not really truly understanding that. They have not put things in place to mentally condition us because the propaganda train started a long time ago. Even I talked about this before, even the idea of what it looked like to be Black before the Civil War was like we were docile and we were just so happy-go-lucky and watermelon smiling and whatever, right? And then after the Civil War, all of a sudden we were these angry beasts and we should be careful because we're out to hurt white women. Like, that propaganda campaign started after the Civil War. It started like they shifted strategies. They shifted strategies from, here's a good old boy and he's on the auction block and look how big and strong he is. He can do everything you need him to do. He ain't lazy. He's a great worker. And then as soon as the Civil War and you were free, it's these lazy niggers. They're dangerous. They're lazy. They're, what I'm saying? So they've shifted strategies, right? We haven't come together and really figured out what our strategy should be. But what I know is one thorn in our side is people who look like us, who cause and do damage and harm to us, and in particular, knowingly. So my real issue is accountability. I don't care about the everyday Black person who's ignorant as fuck, who goes out and on World Star, they having fights with each other and they're doing the most. They're ignorant, right? They're ignorant. And I don't mean that they're ratchet and they ignorant. First of all, I'm gonna just call it how it is, but I also don't mean to say that in a way where they're not deserving of love or of understanding or whatever. I'm just literally saying like they're unknowing. They are asleep. They don't know. They just out here living life the way that they know how to live life. What my issue is when you have knowledge of some knowledge of self, you have knowledge of the systems, you have knowledge of the plight inside of our communities, and then you use that knowledge to capitalize on our own people. You are the same, if not worse, probably worse than the white community, the Asian community, and the Arab community that comes in and capitalizes on us because you are us and you get what the issue is. And then instead of being part of the solution, you more of a part of the problem. We lived in white folks' houses during slavery, but now we can't even live in the same neighborhood. Ain't that some shit? You ain't lying about that. Why do we even acknowledge white supremacy anymore? We have enough wealth at this point to create our own opportunities. So, first of all, I don't like saying white supremacist, and I thank you for even pointing that out because I rarely do that, right? So I say violent white racists because that's what they are. But do we have enough wealth in our own communities to build our own opportunities? Yes and no. So we are definitely consumers. And I also blame leaders for that shit, right? Because who puts out a lot of that is people inside, people who have large platforms, who want to flash this lifestyle in front of our faces. That's not practical. And that a lot of them struggle to live themselves, right? And without us having knowledge of like how that works, because when you go and do a music video, like you don't own everything in your music video. That's rented to you. You better give every diamond, every penny back, every dollar you didn't, throughout or whatever, right? But a lot of times in order to promote the brand, like they will give you an outfit to wear, right? Or they'll let you borrow an outfit to wear, right? Who was it? Like even Michelle Obama had that jewelry on, right? And it was borrowed, right? It was not like she didn't buy it; it was borrowed, and that they got to highlight their brand by saying, "Look, Michelle Obama wore our brand," right? So I think that we promote all this consumerism, and so there is money that's out there, and we do often buy the things we want and ask for what we need. So however, we have money, but we don't control the systems and the resources, right? So even if you have money, you still got to go through the bank in order to, let's say, get a mortgage, right? You still got to go through the credit system. You still got to pay taxes on the land. Like there's a lot of places and pieces that we are not involved in that's just more than money. Money is only one aspect to it, right? There's the cash flow. There's how you make the money grow. There's what you use the money for in order to create systems, in order to lobby for the types of policies and legislation that matters, that affects our everyday life. So I think we have to think about it in not just that clear cut, oh, we have money, so therefore we don't need these systems. Like think about like the Asian community, for example. The Asian community came in and they understood the laws, they understand how everything is governed. Then they came in and they built their own community. So I do believe it's possible for us to build our own communities. However, we still are on a chessboard. Like we can't be playing with checker pieces. It don't matter if we got a million checker pieces if we playing on a chessboard. We got to have the right pieces and we have to understand the rules of the game. And I feel like that's a lot of the places where we're struggling. And so what we do is we feed ourselves through consuming alcohol, consuming drugs, and consuming material possessions. So even when I look at certain things, like maybe I'll talk about my journey towards minimalism and what that was like for me, because my journey towards minimalism had nothing to do with what I couldn't afford. It had everything to do with shifting what I valued. So we're finding out how brainwashed we are to hate ourselves. We do hate ourselves. I feel like I feel like Black people hate being Black, right? And so like we're starting these campaigns around a lot of conversation around, loving ourselves and all of that. But we were on the line as we work on this Black Agenda tour. So we're coming to a city near you. Let me take a moment to throw that out there. We're coming to a city near you. We're starting off in Detroit. Go and get your tickets. We were talking with Dave Banner, and he was like, Black people don't want to admit it, but you hate being Black, right? And think about this. What was that woman's name? Jane. I can't remember her name right now. It'll come back to me. But, she said, who would trade places with a Black person, right? Like Black people don't want to be Black. It don't matter how beautiful we think we are. It don't matter how much we celebrate our hair. Those things don't matter, because when you go to work every day, you use microaggressions. And guess what? At the end of the day, you just would rather not face those microaggressions. You really just don't want to face what it looks like to be inside of the welfare line and people looking at you like you ain't shit. You really just don't want to have to defend your hairstyle or your music or your dress or whatever, right? You really don't want to have to walk into some place and be the only Black person in a space. You're self-conscious of that shit. As freeing as I am, I live in a really white area. I'm always aware of that stuff. You don't want to be worried about your kids every time they step out. Tamir Rice got to me so bad, y'all, because my daughter is that age. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm thinking, is it safe for me to send my daughter to the park in this white neighborhood? I don't know if it's better for me to send her to the park in a white neighborhood or a Black neighborhood. We got crime in our own neighborhoods. We got racist ass white people in the white neighborhoods. Where can she go to play that's safe? Those are things Black people have to think about. And as much as I love my skin, my hair, my life, all of that, I still live in the fact that we're Black in America, and I'm subjected to those things. I'm subjected to the fact that I now have a son. What does that mean? Thank you, Jane Elliott. She posed that question, right? Nobody wants to trade places with Black people. Black people don't want to be Black. And it's not that we don't want to be Black, it's that we don't want the Black experience in America, because that shit sucks. I swear I put this thing on do not disturb, but apparently I have not. So I don't know where I'm tripping. But I think that's important for us to acknowledge, right? So yeah, that's what hunkies are not superior. That's what I don't call them. That's why I try not to say white supremacists. I say violent white racists. That's my word. They're violent white racists. They're not white supremacists. There is a hierarchy of color in the Black community. I come from a family of fair-skinned people, but I'm a darky. White kids called us duds, dark, unattractive, and dumb. Oh goodness, that was in the 80s. See, that's why I say every day, God knew what era to have me be born in, because I be ready to slap folks. Like, I ain't never been scared. I'm still from East Oakland. So I don't know, y'all. So here's what I will say. White supremacy is a myth. They are not superior. I agree. Not everyone will hear. My bad. I'm just kind of going back through the comments because I know I done missed some stuff. I try to stay positive, but it's hard. I really don't want to be another Black suicide. 2 Black friends already checked out on me. Whoa. So that's a conversation to have. That's deep. And so what I will say is, work, like, first of all, my heart goes out to you for your friends that you lost. And I don't want you to check out either, right? Like, I think we have to be very cognizant of who we put ourselves around. But recognizing that Black suicide is on the rise. It is difficult to be Black nowadays. And part of it, and this is one of the things that I said, so I mentioned that they've already done the mental conditioning. But the other side to that mental conditioning is that they've lulled us into this sleep, right? So now you can be, you can go and sit at the counter with white folks, like you can do all of these things. And it feels like we have certain senses of equality to where our ancestors didn't have that. And so they lived in a way that, like, mentally, they have to be mentally tougher. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now, I think that they have broken us in a different way mentally, where we're now like, you didn't hear a lot of times about slaves necessarily taking their own lives, right? Like, maybe on the boats, and maybe that's a part of research that I've never come across, but I didn't hear, by and large, slaves like committing suicide. Black suicide has been on the rise because mentally we really have to address the mental stigma that it comes with being Black, and addressing the fact that it's okay for us to go and get those mental health services. So, that'll be another thing that I'm sure that I'll come around to talking about, right? So I'll talk about my journey with minimalism, which was a shift in my priorities and a shift in my value system. And I'll come back around at some point and talk about my journey with depression, which is an ongoing journey. And what I will say about depression with me currently was I had to learn the signs of depression so that I could make sure that when I felt those signs and start to see those signs creeping up on me consistently, that I was okay to go and get the help that I needed so that I can come back. This fight is a fight. Like, I've already done a lot. I'm not in corporate America. My kids are not in the school system. I spend a significant portion of my time either at home or in the community. I'm at home or I'm in the community, and dealing with misleadership in the community is stressful. And the rest of the time I'm here at the house working on solutions and working on implementing stuff, for our people, right? So I have had the ability to withdraw, but it has not always, that has been a journey in and of itself. That has not just happened overnight. But there are a lot of us who are still stuck in being in that 9-to-5 situation, and you are immersed inside of white society, and that shit brings a whole nother level of stress. And so we do need to recognize those signs and go out and get help when needed, and make sure that we feel comfortable going to get the help that we need, right? So I want to encourage you there. Some of our people seek approval from the dominant society. Absolutely. And that's kind of where I'm saying those gatekeepers come in. To me, they're practicing a present day form of meritorious manumissions. There is a reward for how poorly they can treat their own people. And my question is not what the white community does. The white community rewards that shit. What do we do as a community to remove that power from them? Yeah, that's true. People in Tulsa did have a well before they were bombed. Not everyone will hear you. Those who see the need for foundational practicality more than flashy acquisitions either have to be trained young or found. Trying to shift adults is dangerous. So y'all, we have to have some mindset shifts. That's just gonna have to happen. There's not any way to get around that. We're definitely going to have to have shift the way that we think, right? And I look at that as being like, actually, that's pretty much what my whole coaching program is about. So I do coaching around shifting your mindset and beginning to make those shifts. And I do coaching around like productivity and habit building. But in terms of this conversation around mindset shifts, because it is a continual process to develop yourself and develop the way that you think in a way that is more productive towards what your end goal is, right? So then coming back to the call out culture, because that seems to be what like everyone's answer is. Not everyone on this conversation's answer, but like what I see people do is people's response to misleadership is the call out. And what I say is that we have to be able to figure out other answers, right? But in order to do that, we have to keep working on the way that we think. We have to keep working on our mindsets. I don't have all the answers. I don't know. But I feel like, we have to be able to address that misleadership in a way, because even for them, that's a mindset. That's a mindset to think about consciously taking advantage of your own people after you know what their problem is. Spiritual. It must be spiritual nationalism. Okay. My bad. Hold on. Silence may be I think hide and work in silence may be two different things. Harriet Tubman knew when to hide, knew when to be silent. Some things about this can't be emotional. Unfortunately, they're used against us. So help me clarify what you're saying, right? So are you saying that we have to be more strategic about when to hide and when to be silent? Because if that's what you're saying, I 110% agree with that. But I just want to be clear if that's what you're saying. What we do is set up separate Black institutions, businesses, and systems leading to an independent Black nation. So I agree that we need to set up those institutions, systems, things like that. So that, to me, and so that's a mindset shift, is what we spend our money on, right? Because again, like I really struggle to understand when. So this is my experience, right? And my experience has been two ways. If I go and I do something free inside of the community and go check my track record, if you don't know me, no worries. Google me, Jice Johnson. You can Google me. I'll come up. My track record will come up. And I don't have a problem with talking about that. But if I give away something for free, what I find is that it's undervalued, right? Like, it's free. It must not be worth nothing. I'll come, I don't come, not a big deal. So it doesn't matter what all the planning and preparation that I've done to make sure that what I gave you for free was quality. Now, then on the other side, if I charge, it's like, oh, you're charging to give away, knowledge. You should be out here giving away knowledge for free. Anything you can do to help our people. And so I just be baffled sometimes. Like, first of all, to do something free really ain't free. What it really means is that I went and pandered to fucking white people to go and get the money that I needed to give it to you for free. Let's just talk about that, right? That's not my favorite thing to do. I don't want to go over and start putting in grant applications, and I don't want to go in and ask for sponsorship, because Black people don't sponsor shit that Black people do. Ask me who's sponsoring the Black Agenda. Ask me who's sponsoring the Black Boss Summit. Ask me who's sponsoring the Secure the Bag workshop that I'm having this weekend, right? Black people are not sponsoring. Black people are not putting their dollars to make sure that you can then come in. Let me back that up. This is my 4th Access to Capital workshop. The first 3 I did for free. I never made any money from it. I put in a ton of time, a ton of work, a ton of effort. I secured a venue. I secured food because all of my events have food. I secured equipment. Like I did all the things to put in place. None of that stuff is free. I walk away not getting paid. My family has dealt without me for hours at that point, hours and hours and hours, while I not only did the event, planned the event, cleaned up the event, followed up on the event, worked to get you resources out of the event, right? And fed you at the event, like did all them things, right? So now this year is my first time doing a paid access to capital workshop. I haven't got a lot of flack for it, but I've gotten some flack for it. And I'm saying, but we're not going to sponsor, right? So now if I go to like Bank of America or Chase, who I think owes us money anyway, right? Like they didn't make it on their own. They bought and sold slaves. They owe us from reparations on down the line. They've redlined us. They've done a whole lot of shit, right? They owe us that money. But if I got to go to them to get the money, right? And then now I'm a coon because I put Bank of America's, logo up on their shit. Well, that was the payoff for giving them the money. I put their logo up, right? So now I'm a coon because, we could finance ourselves. How? We're not financing ourselves. I believe we could, but we're not. I get no support from other Black organizations. Let me not say no support. I get extremely small support from other Black-owned organizations, right? So I always find it really interesting as to how we have these conversations around what it is that we can do within our community versus what it is that we do in our community. So when we talk about building our own institutions, like we have to finance that. Do we have the ability to finance it? Yes, but not if you buy in Jordans and Xboxes, not if you go into the All-Star game, which we do. Even if you ain't got tickets to the All-Star game, you want to go down there. Not if you go into BET Awards, not when you go into Crunk Fest or Curl Fest, not when you're doing all of that, you don't have the money to finance the change on the ground that is happening, right? So when I want to come and give information about how to access capital and how to get the money to leverage your business, I don't get that. I don't get that. So we do need to build our own institutions, but we're going to have to finance our own institutions. And that's where Black people need to make mindset shifts. How can we reach the young mothers, aka thoughts, or the young wait a minute. Why do the mothers gotta be thoughts? I was a young mom. I had my daughter at 21. Sometimes it seems like we are preaching to the choir. I say we should have more Black Girl Scout troops, starting with the Brownies. I don't know. Did y'all see that article that just came out saying that the Boy Scouts had sexual misconduct for years? I don't know. I mean, I feel like those things start at home, like, and I guess it depends on what's the age of young mothers. My mother had her kids at 21. I had my kids at 21. My sister waited a while, but I think everything is so. I don't know, and I wouldn't call them thoughts. So that's not, I'm not really. I don't know. Explain that to me a little bit more. It's set up to give people as false sense of security against chaos. When you make people fear that the sense of security will be removed, they'll become your enemy just because. So build in silence. Okay, I got what you're saying. So basically what you're saying is we should not give the white community the idea that we're getting ready to remove their security, right? Is that where you're going? And so therefore we need to keep our mouths shut as we begin to build. So that they don't retaliate, I'm assuming. I don't know. How can I help sponsor your programs and events? Thank you, sis, for asking that question. So you can go to BBI Professional. Y'all, look, we got a little bit ways to go to monetize this channel, but in the meantime, you can Cash App BBI Professional. You can PayPal BBI Professional. You can go onto the website. It is in the process of being it's being redone right now, but you can go to BBI professional.com and you can sponsor. And I appreciate all of that because at the end of the day, I'm doing my best. So I appreciate any support. Yes, it should be paid. Your time isn't free. We pay white people for that stuff all the time. And I say that, right? And here's the thing, really what I'm working on doing, and I'm gonna just be transparent because that's what I am with probably too much stuff. But hey, I can only be who I can be. with BBI, like the Black Business Initiative is for the community, right? It's about how we build a strong economic base. What I personally am working on is building my real estate portfolio. So my goal is so that for the most part, I don't have to take any money from the Black Business Initiative for my time. I do take money for coaching. But, I want to be able to scale the program and put on, information about how to secure money, how to start your business, how to grow your business, how to build a sustainable and profitable business model, how to work your finances out, and all of those things, right? So I work on all of those things. And really, truly, it's not my goal to take a lot of money from the program or hardly take any money from the program. And if you want to see how much BBI has paid me over the last 5 years, it's very minuscule. I make the majority of my money from real estate. I am a disabled veteran. I get child support. Like, I make my money in other ways, right? I do coach, right? I speak. And so I do charge for that. But for the programming that I'm looking to put out in the community, that's not where I get a lot of my money from, because that's not important to me to take money from those spaces. So I think it's important for us to address how we look at our community leaders, right? Because if I did get a salary from BBI, I don't think I would be wrong. Like, this is what I do predominantly, full time, right? Passive income is what I do from real estate. I'm just starting to learn how to do real estate development, which is an active process, whereas the majority of my real estate has been passive from rents. So I have put myself in a position to lend myself to the community. But if I didn't and I wanted to get paid, I don't think that would be an issue. Like, I do have a family to feed. I am a mother. I am out here doing these things and trying to build a legacy for my family and doing, the same thing that I'm trying to tell you to do, right? I'm telling people to do what I'm doing so that you can live your best life. You can live an intentional life. That's what I talk about. All right. So I've been on here an hour. I didn't told my kids I was taking them outside. It's a sunny day. So I'm getting ready to get off, but I want to just make sure I wrap up and didn't miss any major comments. Like, y'all, I'm open. I want to know how we address this misleadership. I don't have the answers. I just be mad as hell and want to rant about it. And that's not an answer, right? So a lot of times I come with solutions. I ain't got a solution. So I want to know what y'all think we should do about misleaders in our community. I'm not talking about white misleadership. I'm talking about Black misleadership, in particular, Black folks who are very much aware of our issues and what we have going on in our community and who aid into that situation, right? So that's who I want to know. What was the propaganda war that is brainwashing and miseducating our people into self-defeat and unproductiveness? We have to counter this with Black cultural revolution. Absolutely, 110%. Come out to the Black Agenda. Go to the blackagendaontour.com. You can catch me at BBI Professional. You can catch me at Jice Johnson. Definitely make sure that you subscribe. I am trying to monetize the channel, y'all. I need about 100 more subscribers and some more viewing hours. So please share out this video. Please subscribe if you hadn't. We do want to monetize the channel. I have every intention on, adding to the revenue streams that the Black Business Initiative has, because we're getting requests to bring out our workshops to other states. It costs money. I cannot fly to another state, bring you all my material and teach a workshop for free, but I can do more when we have what we need. If you are interested in coaching, you can hit me up, all of those things. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow what we have going on. There's a lot happening in Denver, but we are looking to take the platform to more places, and we're putting up things online so that we can work with people who are outside of the Denver area. So those requests have come in. My website is literally being worked on right now on the back end. So you're going to see some changes to the website. There's a resource page on there, and there are more resources being added. So that whole everything on there is going to be revamped in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be more robust with resources and things like that. A lot of the resources on there are for free. Okay, so there's very little that you will pay for to be on to work with the Black Business Initiative. You can also connect with me directly at Patreon. So Patreon, Grind with Jice. Now there I do some workshops and some other things like that. And so you can get involved in that community. But all of those things are, that's my contributions back to the community. So I think that's pretty much it. Section 8 has become a way of life. It has cultivated a sense of entitlement in some Black people that make them think they should be given for free what they should be paying for. That's a good point. That's a good point. I keep saying that we pay for the things we want and we ask for the things we need. And to that housing point, I have talked many times about the fact that we need to have some group housing. I know a group of white folks, they have a cooperative, they have a housing co-op, right? They have a housing co-op, y'all. Like, they are working to get on their feet and they have lowered their housing costs. But we like to be in that comfortable space. And so if you looked at my Facebook rant, I said that. I was like, y'all, we will be on a cushy ass couch, watching TV, eating McDonald's in trenches on a battlefield. And we don't care that we in the middle of the fucking battlefield because, hey, at least we got this cushy ass couch while we here. Like, that's the mentality that we have. We don't recognize that we're in a battlefield, that we're at war. Maybe we need to have more facts about what the Cold War looked like. Like, war don't always got to be bombs flying. There are ways that people wage war on you. And if you're so comfortable in whatever it is, the way that you live, whatever it is that you're doing, you won't even recognize you're at war, or you won't care. I'm going to tell y'all a real story, a war story. This is real. Like, this is how mental conditioning works. Okay. And then I promise you, this is my last thing that I'm going to say before I get off. This is real life conditioning. So I just told you that I was at LSA Anaconda in Iraq, right? So I used to work the night shift while I was at war. I told you that we were bombed daily. That is not an exaggeration. So let me give you an example. When I got there, I believe it was 101st Airborne was actually leaving when we got there. So like the first night we got there, there was a bomb attack. There was one bomb in. There were hella bombs out. Like, mind you, I had just done a 3-day convoy, so it wasn't like we hadn't taken any fire, but still, I'm on the ground. I'm new. This bomb hit. I was like, oh, shit, y'all, I'm in war for real, right? So we heard one bomb come in, sirens are going, but they shot hella bombs out or whatever they were shooting out, right? I don't know because I'm not in infantry, but they were shooting out. So they got an attack in, they shot out. Okay. Y'all hear me? Okay. So now a couple weeks later, 101st leaves and we have this guard unit that came in, right? And this guard unit, they were not proactive at all. So we would have a bomb come in and there would be no outgoing, fire, right? And so what started happening very quickly was we started getting bombed every single day. And so what was happening was, so we have a flak vest on. Now in the wintertime, the flak vest, our bullet, bulletproof vest, flak vest, whatever, right? We got a vest on. You got your Kevlar on, so you got your helmet, you got your vest, you got your weapon. You got to have that shit with you, right? So it was to the point where we were told if we go 48 hours without getting bombed, you can walk outside without having all your gear on. That's what it was. Every single day, if I wanted to step outside of a building, I had to be fully donned in all of my military gear because we were getting bombed every single day. We had to go 48 hours before we could take it off. So one time in my year of being there, we had like 48 hours worth of time that we did not get bombed. We took that shit off and 12 hours later, we got bombed again, right? So I'm laughing because what was starting to take place was we were so used to hearing the bombs go off and so used to hearing the sirens go off that there were times that I pretended not to hear the sirens because I was working at night and during the day shift when it was time for me to go to sleep. And now I've been bombed in the middle of my sleep. I don't want to get up and go sit 2 hours in a fucking hot ass bunker at 140 fucking degrees. I wasn't trying to do that. And what I did was I stayed inside of my trailer and people be knocking on the door because they got to do a head count. They got to account for all their soldiers. And so after the sirens, they be banging on the door. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I was just asleep. Like, I did not want to get up in the middle of my sleep, right? That is a real life example of literally being on a battlefield and not giving a fuck that you got bombs flying around you. I did that. That was a part of my actual life for 365 days, right? I did not get up all the time. I did sometimes, but I did not at other times. I just didn't want to. That is what the Black community does because we have bombs flying all around us. But because we got a cushy couch and we are comfortable eating in restaurants and we can go and get our red bottoms and we can have our PlayStations, we do not care enough to fight. It doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if it's dangerous. We don't want to fight because we are comfortable inside of the war zone, right? And it's easy. Just in 1 year of my life, I got comfortable. I got used to hearing sirens. I got used to hearing bombs. You don't even know you're used to hearing bombs until you get back to the States and a door slam and make you jump out your skin. You don't even realize that that's what you're used to, right? So I'm going to end on that. I just say we are in a war zone and we don't even recognize that we're in a war zone. We don't recognize it because we're so comfortable with all the things that we can do. We're not even recognizing that we're only living up to a small potential of what we could be living because we're constantly being pushed down, right? The systems are weighing down on top of us. So as hard as great as life can be, you are in this constant push, and we're okay with being in this constant struggle or being kept down because, hey, down here ain't so bad. All right. So thank y'all for tuning in. I will be looking for more of those solutions. I'm asking y'all for the solutions. So y'all bring them to me. I'll try and highlight any of them that I'm like, yeah, I see that. Well, I'll highlight them. So anyway, y'all, thank you. Tune in to Michi tonight. She says she's going live at 8:30 tonight. Tune in. All right, y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon. I'm going to go take my kids outside. I'm going to go be a mama. All right. Peace.